This is a sheet of 300-gram watercolour paper, so it's nice and thick, but I haven't taped it down at all. And I'm going to be putting quite a thick, creamy consistency of ultramarine all over it. I'm just going to watch and see what happens. Oops. There we go. There's a bit there where the paint's not taking. I think that might have something to do with oil from my finger that I just popped onto there. So that's affecting how the paint reacts with the paper. But I'm just gonna leave that and see what happens. You can already see that it's starting to lift in the middle. So it's buckling because of the water on the one side of the paper. I'm wondering how far that's going to go. It might well buckle right up and curl over, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm going to come back to that in a bit when it's had a chance to dry. It might take half an hour, might take an hour, but we'll just see what happens to it in the meantime. So this is a close-up of what's happening with the paper. You can see it's actually buckled so that it's lifted right off the table there. So that's obviously all to do with the water soaking into one side and it being dry on the back. But as I say, I'm just going to leave that. So we're only sort of 5 minutes into it and it's really buckling. It's quite alarming when you look at it and you think, oh heck, you know, I've got this completely wrong. It's not good. But actually, the whole thing with watercolours is you have to be really, really patient and give it time. I'm going to come back to this in about an hour and I'll let you see what's happened then. So this is the same bit of paper, exactly 45 minutes later, and you can see it's now, I mean, it's dry now so I can touch it without affecting it, and it's flattened itself back out and it is perfectly usable now for the next layer to go on top. So I'm going to be incorporating these two blemishes into my final piece, so I'm not too bothered about those. So I'm going to start with this and a very damp makeup sponge. Obviously my paint's dry now, but I'm just reactivating it and just going to pull it off the inside of this circular template. A little bit extra water just to keep it moving. There we go, very gentle. Don't want to damage the surface of the paper particularly. I just want to bring off the majority of the paint within this circle. There we go, that's a lot of it coming off there. A little bit of help there with a damp brush as well. There we go, just lifting that off. Okay. Obviously you're never going to get back to a pure white with this method. Usually with watercolours you kind of know where you want your white to be before you start, and you try and make sure that you leave that white. But of course it's not going to work with if you put a wash over the entire thing. Right, so is that the size? I don't think I want that size. I think I want a slightly bigger size. Nope, that's too big. Am I going to go there? Have another little look at that one. Is that going to do it? It just might actually. Again, with the white brush, white wet sponge, just pulling a lot of that off. There we go. Blotting it again, but not wanting to damage the surface of the paper. There we go. Just blot that. So we've got the basis of a snowman there, which is what I'm going to take forward with my paints and see where we can take this. I'm going to start with a scarf, I think, to join the two together. Obviously this colour's going over the blue. I probably should have waited for that to dry before I started, but never mind, I started now. And it's going to be the first layer. It's going to be quite a fluffy scarf. Okay, so we've got scarf coming here. Go. And the other side. Quite a thick neck on my snowman. And I'm using a very dark crimson, alizarin crimson, this one, for my scarf, just to make it stand out against the blue that's underneath there. Have a little bit of a tasseled edge to it as well underneath there. A little bit of texture. A few folds in it as it comes out underneath the bit that drops over the top there. There we go. Okay, a little bit of texture to it there. Okay, I'm happy with that as a first attempt on there. I'm going to go for a classic black hat on my snowman, but I'm going to make it quite an old battered hat. So we're going to include this little blemish over here. It's going to be a big old hat. Obviously you can go for something a little bit more classical if you want. Just bringing the brim down and around and across there. I'm going to make it a little bit sort of bit soggy and saggy. A little bit darker. Little bits of white in there as well. So there we go. Put round the front there. Okay, I'm going to go under the brim. To the far side of the snowman's head. On either side. There we go. Okay. I'm quite happy with how that's developing. Dipping down a little bit there. Now I'm going to put some coals for eyes. Again, sticking with the whole sort of traditional snowman. So a little circle there, but leaving a little bit of it white, as if there's a little bit of light glinting off the coal. Just gives it that little three-dimensional sort of sense to it. And then we're going to put more coals in for the mouth. Again, leaving a little bit of white reflecting on it. Go. They don't have to be round. They don't have to be even. They just have to be there. Okay. We can go back in and darken those up if we want later. And then, of course, the classic buttons on the tummy. There we go. I think we'll just have two on the tummy. Depends how big your snowman is, really, as to how many you want to have. So next, we're going to be thinking about a carrot for the nose. So we're going to put our snowman's nose in. I've got a nice bright orange now. I'm just going to start with a little sort of C shape, an upside down C shape, like that. And then another one next to it. And another one next to it, a bit smaller. And we're just coming slightly smaller and slightly further up until we end with a dot there. And that is our carroty nose with a tiny little sort of bit on the top. So we've got a tiny little bit of highlight on that there. And our snowman's very nearly done. but we need some sticks for arms. Okay, sticks for arms. So I've woken up rather a nice rusty sort of brown. I'm going to go in with a sweep up. There we go. Nice wide sort of chunky sort of sticks. Like that. First layer on. And the same the other side. Might have a little bit of an angle on it. Don't forget you can turn your page. Just be careful not to put your fingers in the paint like I just did. And again, little stick shapes. Don't have to be the same size. They don't have to be very even. They just need to be there. Now I'm going to go back into the water with my makeup sponge from earlier on, and it's just very, very slightly damp. I'm going to be encouraging the suggestion of snow around the foot of the snowman. Just pulling and lifting some of that blue so that he's anchored to the ground, which I think works quite nicely. I'm going to leave the sky behind, obviously, but we've got a little bit of a horizon, possibly, and lifting some of this blue out. Not a lot of it, just a suggestion, so that it's a little bit uneven. There we go. So we've got the ground in there now. I'm going to go back to my brushes and I'm going to wake up a little bit of a sort of a light purpley colour, like pinky purple. We're going to add in a little bit of shadow onto our snowman's belly on the underside. This is a very light pinky colour, which is really quite a nice contrast to the blue. It's a little bit warmer, adds a little bit of warmth to our snow. And we're also going to pull that into the snow around his feet. So he's got a little sort of shadow where he reaches the ground. And it helps to anchor him into our painting. So realistically, when you're painting snow, you're really painting the shadows rather than the white. And that enables you to add a little bit of shape in to the shape that you've created. A bit of shadow under the hat. It's always a good idea. There we go. And then you can fiddle with that as much as you like until it makes you feel that you think it's finished. A bit more under there. And there we go. And don't forget to finish by signing your work.